Okay, welcome to the 2021 State of Project Lifelong. We're going to take a deeper look at your organization today. It should be known that this presentation is intended for our current board of directors. Please don't share it out quite yet. Hopefully do a public version of this as well. The hope is that by our Thursday meeting on June 10th, everyone can come with any questions that they might have about what we presented on, or even just gaps that might not be in this presentation. We're trying to cover most of everything, but of course there's just a lifetime of things that we could cover about Project Lifelong. So let's dive into it. So the presentation is going to cover our financials. It's going to be a brief overview. We're hoping to work with our business administrator and put together a meeting with those interested to go more into detail of exactly how our financials look for the organization. We're going to go over our insurance briefly. We'll talk about our current partnerships, our different employees that we have for Project Lifelong, and of course we'll dive in and look a little deeper at our programs that we're offering and talk a little bit about our goals for future programming as well. So the financial basics. So basically, our fiscal year is the calendar year. Jerry Peterson, she is a paid employee. She's our business administrator. She was also a former executive director of SIP. That's the Sheriff's Community Impact Program. That's the former name of our nonprofit. And her main role right now is to manage the finances. She does a great job at keeping the books. She's always very responsive, and she's fantastic. Project Lifelong contracts a CPA each year in December. We've used the same CPA for the last, I want to say, at least 3 years, and they've been fantastic. And of course, our tax documents are due May 15th each year. We're also using a cloud-based system called Aplos for our finances. Our board of directors will have access to the online system to be able to check it out. And then in September, we have our traditional annual budget meeting for the upcoming year. And that budget's actually approved in December for the upcoming year. So looking forward to September. So just a brief look at our expenses for this year. Our current budget shows a little bit over $140,000 in expenses. If anyone's seen our expense budget makeup from last year, it's a lot higher. That's because we were operating underneath a federal grant as well. It was a 5-year grant for a program called CESHA. It stood for the Coalition for a Safe and Healthy Art Arcade. That 5-year grant did sunset in September of last year, but that's what was making our expenses look so much higher the year prior. Currently, our revenue sources, we have what we call an ASAP grant. It's basically drug and alcohol funding. It's lightly restricted, and it's through the Sacramento County Office of Education. We have the WEH grant. That was a foundation. It stands for William Hunter. That was a $25,000 foundation grant that came to us during COVID. Actually, kind of like an angel donor, if anything. We can go more into that in a little bit. Some of our finances come from asset forfeiture from Sacramento Sheriff's Department. We've also been successful in getting 2 PPP loans this year. We got a California COVID relief grant. We have over $20,000 in monthly donors. And of course, our Big Day Giving was very successful this year. Just some brief strategy. And of course, I'm so excited to actually build strategy with our new board of directors as we start building out our fundraising teams. But really, we're hoping to build a financial system and structure that is made up of unrestricted dollars, mainly because they're more flexible. We really don't want to be dependent upon grants as an organization, as it is soft money. We've seen other organizations in the nonprofit sector dependent on grants, and when those grants sunset, sometimes they hit the panic button. Obviously, we wouldn't be naive to not want to go after grants. We think grants are fantastic. They're almost like bonuses and add-ons to new programming. But traditionally, a lot of grants don't cover operations. And when they do, they can be very restrictive and even change the way we do business. We're hoping to build a grant writing team down the road, absolutely. Of course, we're always looking to build out on our monthly donors. This one's been huge for us, and I think there's so much more we can reach as we go forward. Big Day Giving this year was amazing. And that was really just with a month of planning and outreach this year. If we can put together a 6-month plan this year and actually put together events and do a lot more reach, I think Big Day Giving could almost be $100,000 in revenue for the year. One big thing we really want to ramp up on this year and get a strategy around is our business partnerships. We have a lot of different ideas and ways to implement connecting with businesses and even giving them an experience as we're going to ask them for funding, of course. There's different apps like the Roundup app that rounds up to the nearest dollar, and of course, Facebook birthdays, and then also a bunch of fundraising events too. I think we're going to talk a lot about this with the board, and we've reached our capacity and our reach. And I say we, I and Mike have really reached. I mean, we've reached out to our circle of friends time after time. So the power of having a board and different circles to reach out to is it's a big deal. So fundraising can be just as important as fundraising. And of course, as I said at the beginning, we really want to form a fundraising team and come up with new fundraising tactics and strategies and events. I'm incredibly excited to do this, as I know we have so much experience on this board. We'll take a brief look at our insurance. Congratulations, we are insured. This does include directors and officer insurance, just in case anyone was wondering, you are covered. Our insurance is actually a little more expensive than traditional youth programming experience because of the high risk program. High risk is really when you look at things like anything that uses water, which we do our surf trip, we do whitewater rafting, and then of course skateboarding and those more extreme extreme sports are still deemed very dangerous as far as insurers are concerned. Right now, we're currently insured through a Florida PAL. The PAL stands for a Police Activities League. In previous years, we've been under a PAL out of Sacramento. And as we've shifted and moved forward, we found that the Florida PAL, it's less restricting on the work that we're doing. They do know that we're no longer called the Sheriff's Community Impact Program and that we are operating as Project Lifelong. They've been responsive and great to work with so far. That's between $2,000 to $3,000 annually for that insurance. The reason we're sticking with the PAL connection is that as we looked at insurance moving away from the Sheriff's Department and moving away from the group insurance to the PALs, we found that it would be almost all the way up to $10,000 to insure the programs that we're doing. It's actually very difficult to find insurance because our programs are very unique. Why Florida PAL? I mean, really, it's another police activities league, and it's a little less restricting than our local one that we're working with. That insurance is going to re-up in October. So as far as our partnerships go, and again, we'd love to see this list just continue to grow. There's a lot of partners that we work with, one time, two times. The partners that are listed right here are partners that have continued with us over the years. The Rotary community van that we use, so that's a shared 15-passenger van. The groups that shared are Fultondale Camino Park District, Mission Oaks Recreation Park, Point West Rotary, Arden Arcade Rotary, and Carmichael Rotary. And then, of course, Project Lifelong. So that is a huge one for us. That's the way we're able to get around and do our out-of-town trips with our youth. All that's insured through all 5 of those groups. Also, any maintenance is paid for through all 5 of those groups as well. The Youth and Family Collective, this is a huge one for us. So the Youth and Family Collective is, and I guess it's a nonprofit now, but it's a collective of over 25 different nonprofits in the Sacramento area, all youth and family serving. This was something that was created by the team from Pro Youth and Families, and it's a big deal because they're really working on doing collective efforts as far as finding collective funding sources, collective grant writing, and even collective shared spaces. The model that they're going after is really changing the way nonprofits are doing business, as a lot of nonprofits are grant dependent, and also the grants that they're getting do not cover operations or overhead. So it's been around for about 3 years now. It's a very kind of progressive, futuristic way of thinking of nonprofits, but it's been very exciting to see the work that they're doing, and we're happy to be with them. That actually was what led to our first skate night site at the Fruit Ridge Community Collaborative, and we'll go into that a little bit more. We also have a great partnership with Swanston Community Center. That's through Mission Oaks Recreation and Park District. That's where we currently hold our office space. It's off of Northrop and Fulton in the Arden Arcade area. We are currently looking to move to a different office space, though our partnership with Mission Oaks Recreation and Park District is still very strong. The Sierra Club's Inspiring Connections Outdoors program, we also call this ICO. This has been a huge partnership for the last 3 years. And it's also one of the big reasons we're able to do some of those amazing outbound trips. The whitewater rafting, the backpacking trips, the snowshoeing, all of those are led by ICO. It's huge for us because they're able to help cover a lot of the funding for that. And it helps us really create a more diverse and robust experiences for our high school leadership program. We're also partnered with a lot of local law enforcement agencies, including the Sacramento Sheriff's Department, where Mike actually, that's where SIP started when Mike was working the youth services unit at the Sacramento County Sheriff's Department. The Skate Wild group, we've been with them for 2 years now. They have helped offer us 2 different 1-week, outbound skateboarding trips. They're a fantastic group to work with, very much so skateboarding forward. Last year we got to go on 5 different days of camping, different skate parks, and they've actually donated that week-long trip to us. All we have to cover is the gas, and then of course bring the youth that deserve it. The Revert Foundation, that's a partnership that's on hold because of COVID, but they're still very much so excited to work with us. They're going to help us with getting our kids up to do multiple snowboarding trips, probably leading into this winter. Of course, the snowboarding trips are going to be reserved for our high school leadership program. Mission Oaks Park and Recreation, or Recreation and Park District, they've been huge. They have huge roots in the founding of the Sheriff's Community Impact Program, which is what formerly Project Lifelong was. And they still continue to be incredibly supportive. They've helped us with some funding a couple years ago to get sites started. They donated our cargo van. They've helped us with the event space. They're a huge, huge partner for us. And then the Carmichael Parks and Recreation, that's a partnership that is slowly warming up. We have a presentation with the foundation in a couple weeks, and we're hoping that it leads to perhaps a funding opportunity to help us with our new Carmichael site at Will Rogers Middle School. All right, so our employees. So right now, SIP has 5 different employees on payroll. We have contracted different employees for different programs over the years. However, these are the ones that are on payroll. We have myself, Sean Latour Harkeen. So I am a co-founder and co-executive director, aside with Mike Sajan. Right now, Project Lifelong is paying me 20 hours a week. No benefits. And right now, Project Lifelong, everyone asks, Project Lifelong is my full-time and only job. Yes, I said full-time, although I might be getting paid 20 hours. I do volunteer a lot of hours each week. And hopefully at one point we can grow this thing enough to where I can make it a full-time position, because I love it. A big thing I focus on is partnerships in the community and businesses, and then of course fund development. Just organizational development in general, developing this new board and the infrastructure is a huge thing I'm working on. I handle all the marketing and web content, including the social media and communications with parents and youth. I'm also the program manager for the skate nights and our high school leadership traveling and outdoor excursions. And as I said before, the goal is to go full-time at some point. And then, of course, we have Mike Sajan. He is the founder of the Sheriff's Community Impact Program. He was also responsible for funding Project Lifelong when we got started under the SIP umbrella. Of course, now he's the co-executive director of Project Lifelong. We're currently paying him 18 hours a week with no benefits. Overall, he's an overall admin of the SIP and Project Lifelong transition, and really Project Lifelong in general. He's managing a lot in all of our accounts right now. He works a lot with our vendors, our different contracts, that including our contracts with IRS, the Secretary of State, of course our insurance, and he's helping build the membership database as well that all of our program and youth are plugged into, so we're able to track them and connect with them. He's also working a lot with me on funding development, and he's a non-voting officer of the organization. And then we have Jerry Peterson, as mentioned earlier. She's a business administrator. She's managing all of our finances and does a fantastic job. She'll definitely be a liaison and connection for our treasurer. She was a former executive director of SIP years past, and we were paying her about 6 hours a week. Bob Kerr is a skate night site supervisor. If you've met him, he's a very special human being, always so passionate about the work that we're doing with youth. He ran the Los Sierras Skate Park under Carmichael Recreation and Park District for years. Right now, we're able to pay Bob 3 hours for each skate night that he runs a week. So as we grow into our 3 to 4 skate nights a week, we're hoping to see Bob's hours increase. He's incredible with teaching the younger kids how to skate. He's very passionate about music as well. And one day we're hoping to kind of build out a music component for Project Lifelong, so that's going to be very exciting. Bob was also a huge part of the beginning of doing our mobile skate park program, where we used to bring ramps around in a van. We're no longer doing that program, but it has shifted into our skate nights. And then, of course, there's Tim Jones. He's also a site supervisor. He helps a lot with when we're building our ramps for our new skate night sites. He's incredibly valuable for a lot of different reasons. One of the reasons I think he's very valuable is he's very active in the Sacramento skate community. He's great at connecting and bringing on new youth. He's great at connecting with skateboarding organizations, and also I think he's going to be huge in bringing on volunteers from our community to help with our skate nights. He's also getting paid 3 hours for each skate night that he runs each week, and then of course getting paid for the ramp construction hours. He recently got his Class B driver's license, which means he can drive youth around in our community van. And this is going to be huge because we're hoping that Tim is going to actually be the future lead on our skate trips and anything that's a camping trip that's skateboarding related, even for our high school leadership team. We're hoping that Tim is going to take lead on that. And then, of course, let's dive into the Project Lifelong programs. So right now we are operating skate nights. We do have we're working on building out our high school skate leadership. Of course, COVID's kind of slowed that down. We're going to talk about Project Awareness, which is also known as SHOCK, our boxing program, and then an idea for a future program as well. So the big thing with skate nights before we dive in, as far as how they operate, I'd love each one of our board members to come out to a skate night if they haven't seen it. Basically how we do it is we purchase metal shipping storage containers, and then we get them on these different sites, and then we fill them up with skate night ramps. In the fall, there'll be generators and floodlights in there, and we pull everything out, and the kids get to skate, and then we put everything back. The containers are great and a great model for us because we don't have to leave anything out, so it helps prevent against theft, of course, liability, and then when they're locked up, they're nice and secure. So Fruit Ridge Community Collaborative, also known as FRCC, this is our first skate night site that we ever ran. It's located in South Sacramento. The FRCC site used to be managed by Pro Youth and Families, also the Youth and Family Collective, and this has actually shifted within the last week, which last week would have been May of 2021. So we're really interested to see who is going to be managing that site and if that's going to result in us moving to a different site or continuing there. This site was originally funded by a Future Forward grant that we wrote, and that grant was produced through the Sacramento County Office of Education to get us started. This site is currently our only site that has been open during the COVID pandemic. It is, in the past, we've had to do 14 kid cohorts because of the mandated guidelines. So what we've done is bring twice as many ramps so we can take on up to 28 kids at these sites. The cohort size has been lifted, and we're expecting to see a lot of changes as our new guidelines are out in mid-June. Right now, we still have our kids wearing masks, of course, and we have to follow the guidelines that are set in place. Arden Middle School. So Arden Middle School is a very special one as it's our second site, but it's the first skate night site that we've had on an active junior high campus. It's located in the Arden Arcade area, right off of Watt and Arden. It's also in Mission Oaks Recreation Park District lines, which is fantastic. To fund this, we actually put together funding a very generous donation from Mission Oaks Recreation and Park District. The Arden PTA helped us with the shipping container purchase, and then the Arden Arcade and Point West Rotary have been huge with community grants as well. This site has been closed during the pandemic because of the way San Juan Unified has been permitting, or I should say not permitting, outside user groups. We do expect this to change going into fall of 2021. The main thing we're anxious about opening back up in fall is that Arden Middle School just went through a major construction project through over the summer. So we are in contact with the PE department. We expect that when the PE department is able to use the blacktop, we'll be able to start our skate night program up again. And again, we're very hopeful for fall of 2021. The biggest thing that we learned from being on Arden Middle School campus when we were operating before COVID, this is also why we are really pushing to get on more school campuses. When our skate night campuses are on school campuses, our skate night sites are on school campuses, we find that a lot of those kids that don't traditionally connect with schools, they have a much more powerful connection with their school. This has been said by them and also the teachers that they work with. There's a huge increase in female participation when we're on school campuses. We think that this is because our young females are more defined on campuses, or even previously have defined themselves on their campuses as well. And then we see that we actually have more parent involvement when we're on a active school as well. Will Rogers Middle School is our third skate night site. We've actually yet to open and operate this site because of the COVID pandemic. It's located right on the edge of the Carmichael and Fair Oaks border. It is in Carmichael Recreation Park District lines. Will Rogers is a Title I school. It has a high special needs population, which we're hoping that this will lead to some great events with the organization SkateMD, as they do a lot of events that work with students with neurological and physical disabilities. The original funding source for this was from the Sheckler Foundation. We're actually working on a partnership and some funding with the Carmichael Recreation Park District's foundation as well. Right now the site is about 75% built. This has kind of been a slow build because we had to move a lot of ramps from this site to FRCC in order to build twice as many ramps to take on 2 cohorts. So we're slowly bringing ramps back, and we're also building ramps. Of course, this is under the San Juan Unified School District's permit system, so we're still waiting and hopeful for fall of 2021. We've had a recent difficulty with the shipping container situation there. We do have a shipping container on that campus. However, we've learned that we need to have it a lot closer to the blacktop and where we're going to do our programming. And the difficulties come from the shipping container company that we've used traditionally does not have the right insurance for San Juan Unified. So this has kind of been a huge, it's been a difficult part. It's the only negative thing so far that we've had working with the school districts, and that we can't control when our shipping containers get put on campus. Jeff Banks, he is the vice principal at Will Rogers. He was also the principal at Arden Middle School when we started that program. He's been huge in being a liaison for these programs and also connecting with shipping container companies that do have the right insurance. So it is looking like that situation is getting better. However, we're still waiting and hopeful that we're able to move a shipping container on that campus to get started in the fall. However, we figure that process out is going to be huge when we do the same thing when we open new sites through San Juan Unified School District. So very slowly, a site in Orangevale is warming up. If we had to put a date on it, maybe fall of 2022. Again, this is a site that we will not build until it is fully funded. We're hopeful to get this site going at Pasture Middle School. There's also a great park in Orangevale as well, but of course we want to be on middle school campuses because of the previously mentioned reasons as far as more female participation and more connection to the school. We're working with the Orangevale Chamber. I have a Rotary presentation coming up in a few months. And then, of course, we're working with the Orangevale Parks and Rec as well. That park administrator, I can't remember his actual title, but I know he's leading a lot at Orangevale Parks and Rec. He was actually formerly with Mission Oaks Parks and Rec and huge in building a connection with the Parks and Rec District, and even great with helping us with funding. So far, we do have $5,000 committed to this project from a gentleman named Cliff Wiley. He refers to himself as the honorary mayor of Orangevale. He's got a lot of energy and is great at putting people together. We've told Cliff and his partners that we need to have $40,000 to get this site started. That's going to help cover the site build and also year one of our operations. We're also working a lot with the chamber to basically match that donation and move forward. We'll be looking at Pasture Middle School in a couple weeks to see if that site works for us. Real fun. We did an event a while back. It wasn't an event. We just showed up as a pop-up booth, and we had met the county supervisor for that district. Her name is Sue Frost, and we went to coffee afterwards, and she's happy to sponsor a fundraising event when that time comes. So finally, just overall needs and goals for skate nights. And again, this is just a list that I've come up with. I know that I'm hopeful that our board has goals of their own as well. And of course, we'd like to hear them. A big thing that I would really like to see with our skate nights is we need to create a volunteer intake form, or not form, but just a system of bringing in volunteers. I think this is really going to lead to one of our future board teams, not a committee, but a team is what we're going to call them. We need a way to reach out to volunteers. We need a way to get them fingerprinted, and then we need a rotating schedule as well. And of course, we need to train them for the sites. The more volunteers I think we can get involved, the more people really get a feel for the powerful work that we're doing. And I do think it's going to lead to great fundraising and just really future donors as well. Our parent communication involvement is definitely something that could increase. Again, I think this is going to come from a team that's really working with our programs. I think the more parent communication involvement we have, again, I think that's going to lead to better fundraisers and even future donors. We definitely are looking for more female participation. Pre-COVID, we had about 25% of our participants were young ladies. And right now, we're really rotating. There's only two that come out to our sites consistently. I think there's a lot of reasons that this is happening, but I do see more female participation when we open up our school sites. There's also a few female groups, like skating groups out there, that I'm hoping to do events with to bring in more young females as well. A big goal and also really a need for the organization is I really want to get our site supervisors trained up and really supported by a volunteer system so that I can get off of the skate night sites. Of course, this is not because I don't like being on skate night sites, but at the end of the day, the work that I'm doing is a lot more of it as admin right now, and it's very difficult to do 8 hours of admin work and then go off to skate nights as well. Um, Another thing that we really need is a digital roster system. We really just need to get an iPad that can connect and has data that can connect to the internet. We're not able to connect to internet at the actual site, so it needs to be connecting to data. This would be huge because I'd be able to update our rosters from a computer that's not on site, and then Bob and Tim on our site could actually track all of our participation as well as the roster down to the time that folks show up. One big goal that we have, and again, this is a long-term goal. I wouldn't put a timeline on it, but as we get our skate night sites to come back together, one thing that we've talked about for a long time is really creating and building out a music and art component. One thing that we would love to do are like quarterly events and partner with music and art departments at our different schools and have it as a place that kids like high school bands can come play. Kids can actually promote their own art, maybe even sell and trade it as well. And so skating will be the middle and the kind of the highlight of what we're doing, but really it's going to turn into an alternative hub for youth to just come and find their identity and express themselves. Another huge goal, and this is really, I think, where the beginnings of Project Lifelong came from, is getting our school districts to really endorse and commit the future of these programs. And I think what I mean by that is, at the school level right now, we're still very much so an outside user group. We're certainly not getting any funding from the school districts as well. And we really want to write the story and show folks that, what we're doing is attracting a lot of kids. There's over 10 million kids that identify as skateboarders in the United States. Skateboarding is going to be in the Olympics coming up. And there's just dozens of reasons why, it really should be something that the school districts are helping to offer and, of course, helping to fund as well. I could go into this forever, but when you compare it to what's going on with traditional sports, we have just as much participation. The cost to run it is actually a little bit cheaper, and same thing with the cost of the equipment to get it started. So definitely a big part of the conversation. So we also have our high school leadership program. Right now, I'm going to call this our skateboarding high school leadership program. The big goal is to create a continuum with youth as they transition from junior hires. We have a high school program waiting for them so that we're able to really see them all the way through their high school graduation. Our high school leadership program has been something that has been adapting and changing over the years. I'm excited to talk about really the future vision of this and what it really could build into. But we'll talk about what we've been doing and where we're currently at first. So right now, our high school leaderships, it's really a team of volunteers for high schoolers. They are in charge of setting up our skate night and breaking down our skate night. When COVID kind of slows itself down and we're able to travel again, this will include some skateboarding and camping trips. Notoriously, we have had a lot of outbound trips for our high schoolers, and that's definitely something we want to see continue. It's a great way for our current high schoolers to gain volunteer hours and even work experience to put on their resumes, or even for hours that are required by their school. The big thing to note is that, COVID has definitely limited a lot of our trips. It's been harder to find more opportunities for these kids to volunteer that aren't Project Lifelong related. And then really overall, it's just been a difficult year to have anything consistent for the high schoolers. And that has a lot to do with our amount of funding to make the programs happen. But a lot of it just has to do with our consistency of being able to run skate nights at different sites. Because we're only operating in South Sacramento, it's really negated the ability to connect with those kids from Arden Arcade and Carmichael that were ready to become high schoolers out of Arden Middle School. So we're hoping to really ramp up our numbers on that as well and make sure that our skate night sites where they volunteer are a lot closer to where they live because, of course, transportation can always be a difficult thing for our youth. So the future vision of this leadership program, this is something I'm incredibly excited about. It's been something that I think we've wanted to build for a long time, but it does take more funding and it's going to take a lot more time as well. And then, of course, as COVID opens up things, that's going to help. I'd love to see a ramp building and construction component, even a project maybe each semester or each year for this program. Building that ramp would include planning, budgeting, building, of course, like recording the process. I think it would be great to build that into some sort of STEM curriculum connection. Again, not overdoing it on the curriculum because I think that we don't want it to be too structured. We want to make sure our high schoolers are really enjoying the process and it doesn't feel like they're at school still. This high school leadership program, I think it could be so great for job shadowing and career exploration. I know we have an engineering group that Carly works for, that's been very supportive of the work we're doing. And it'd be great to get those kids just a day at a job shadow or even just go look at what it looks like to be an engineer and other construction related opportunities. We'd love to see a youth advisory board down the line. Of course, this is going to take somebody managing the youth advisory board, but I think it'd be so fun and great and powerful to connect it with our current board of directors. A big thing that youth could do is really work on planning and budgeting trips throughout the year. Also voting on, big decisions for Project Lifelong too, I think would be fantastic. We'd love to see more outbound trips for our high school leadership team. This is all based on the partnerships that we can build. But a huge part of it is, at those outbound trips, we could really build out more team building opportunities. And then ideally, I'd love to see this program follow the school year. So as we go into fall, we're actually looking to recruit maybe our team for that school year, and then we can rotate them on the different skate night sites throughout Sacramento that they're local to. I think it works so well because we can get them to volunteer in the fall. We can have great winter snowboarding trips, anything outbound really. And as we go to the spring, they're also going to help with the spring skate nights and those trips that are notoriously more weather dependent. This is like camping and outbound trips will lead us into the summer as well. And of course, we'll have skate trips on those trips. So our Project Awareness and Shock program. So right now, if you hear Project Awareness and Shock, we're talking about the same program in the sense of this will never be two different programs. It's really Shock is turning into Project Awareness. To talk a little bit about the history, the Shock program began in 2013. It addresses unhealthy behaviors and really for underserved and disconnected youth. It's been historically very collaborative, whether that's with Parks and Rec or different the police departments in the Sacramento area, and of course the Sacramento Sheriff's Department. And it's really creating different classes for cohorts of kids that give them opportunity to learn skills and get experiences that's going to help them with more positive lifestyle choices. If you've ever heard of a diversion program, it's a very similar model to a diversion program, although the main difference is that our youth don't have to be in the juvenile system. Really just, a lot of it is just high-risk youth. Traditionally, we're getting these kids referred by their school systems, by their parents as well, and we've created an intake system for them as well. Notoriously, we've had a Sac State social work intern do all the intake for this program. So when you look at Shock, the big difference between Shock and Project Awareness, and I guess I won't say like all the reasons why, but some reasons that were kind of shifting towards Project Awareness. So Shock ran when Mike was Sacramento in the Sacramento County Sheriff's Department when he worked in the youth services unit. He has since retired from that, so he doesn't have as much of a direct influence on that program now. And Shock really, it does rely on a lot of the Sheriff's Department's resources. This program's notoriously been, this classes has been conducted by Sacramento Sheriff's officers. And, because really, at the end of it, it costs a lot of money for the programming. But the biggest thing is that it really is dependent on whether or not the Sheriff's Department gives us access to those officers. So as we move forward for Project Awareness, we're still looking to create that very powerful diversion program and teaching those lifestyle choices and healthy skills. But we're kind of looking at it more as from more of a mental health perspective. We really want to bring a mental health component in. There's a curriculum called Mind Matters that we're writing into our grants right now. And then, of course, we want to connect it with almost a culminating outdoor experience for youth to bring it all together. Right now, the program is currently not fully funded. We've been looking for grants for this program for the last year and a half, and hopefully that we can build a grant writing committee to be successful in getting a grant for this. Ultimately, we'd love to see it funded by unrestricted funding in the long run, so that it's not as restricted. The vision that we have for this is to have 3 different cohorts of 20 youth, and it's going to cost roughly $65,000 per year. Boxing. All right. So the secret boxing program. So boxing has actually been the oldest running program in our organization's history. This was I believe, one of the first SIP programs that launched. It's always been located at the Thomas Edison Language Institute. That's through San Juan Unified School District. It's in the Arden Arcade area. I believe it's off of Hurley and Fulton. This program has been historically had a high Hispanic participation. It's also the cheapest boxing gym in the Sacramento area for youth. It is subject to San Juan Unified permitting, so we haven't been able to run this program during COVID because they won't let us do outside user groups. Right now, it's been about 25 youth rotating through the program. And then, we're actually kind of looking for a new location for this program. We're happy to do it at Thomas Edison. However, with the restrictions that we've had, it's made it difficult to operate. Right now, this program is not funded. We are looking for funding, and we think we could get it from a grant. It's roughly $7,000 per year. And then a future programming idea to kind of wrap it up. So I think I've talked to a few folks about this. So we have a lot of youth that are incredibly interested in outdoor adventures, or just the outdoors in general. A big part of what we're hoping to do with our Project Lifelong vision and mission is we really want to connect our youth with the outdoors. We want to provide access to outdoor adventures that kids might not have, and really just improve on the knowledge and experiences that youth have with stewardship in the outdoors as well. The outdoors is, we've really kind of embedded it in our high school and skate program over the years. There's always been camping. We've always been backpacking. But the big issue is that I think that we miss a lot of youth because right now we're really only catering to kids that are skateboarders or that are interested in skateboarding. We have done a standalone outdoor adventure program, and it was great, but what we're really hoping to do is create the same model that we use for our Skate Nights program for the youth that might not be interested in skateboarding. So what I mean by that is we really want to create that same continuation. We want to create some sort of weekly meetup for junior high aged kids. And then as they transition into high school, we want to put them through a leadership program and see them all the way through that high school graduation. One big idea that we've had for our weekly meetup is utilizing a local bouldering gym. Basically what bouldering is, it's indoor rock climbing. There's 3 of them in the Sacramento area, and they're just fantastic. The progression in climbing boulders is it's really fun. You can do it as a beginner, and you can really progress into some really difficult climbing. It is connected with outdoors too, which is fantastic. If we were able to do it at a gym, it'd be great because we wouldn't have to bring and set up the equipment each night. Of course, we're open to other ideas too that would be good for weekly outdoor experiences. And then as our kids in that program transition to high school, of course, we want them to be the ones that are mentoring the younger kids at the bouldering nights or the weekly outdoor nights. And the high school leadership program will be very much mentoring and stewardship focused. Just like our high school program for skateboarding, our high school leaderships in an outdoor program would get the camping and outbound experiences. There'll, of course, be a community service component, probably locally. And then, of course, there'll be a stewardship component connected with, the outdoors, probably outside of Sacramento County. We could go forever on this one and connect it with forestry. I'm sure there's a STEM component as well. But again, this is just an idea that we've been thinking about for a long time as we get to add on more programming as our funding becomes more robust. So that's pretty much all I have for right now. Thanks everybody for listening. I know it's kind of a long one, and I know that there's so much that was not covered about Project Lifelong. So I'm really hoping that folks will come with questions to our meeting on June 10th, either about anything that we covered or anything that was not covered that you still have questions about. We'd love to dive in deeper. Again, we're going to have a specific to our funding and budget presentation and meeting coming up soon. So we'll put that on the calendar where we can meet with Jerry and Mike and really go deeper into the budget. That's not going to be required for the board by any means, but if it's something that folks are interested in, we're definitely going to have that. And yeah, that's going to be it for now. So looking forward to seeing everybody this Thursday, and thanks for listening.